Rashida had been away at university for years, and stepping back into her childhood home in Accra should have felt like a warm welcome. Instead, something felt wrong the moment she opened the door. The familiar aroma of her mother's cooking, the scent that always made the house feel alive, was gone. The furniture wasn't where she remembered. The living room felt bare, the dining table oddly positioned, and an emptiness settled over the rooms like a heavy fog. Every corner of the house, once full of laughter and memories, seemed foreign. Her confusion turned to disbelief when a letter arrived, official and cold, in her hands. It was from the bank, confirming that her younger sister, Rania, had sold the house, without even talking to her. Rashida felt the letter slip from her fingers as her heart sank, memories rushing back uninvited. Birthdays celebrated in the living room, late-night chats at the kitchen table, the little rituals that had made the house more than just walls and furniture. The shock deepened when she saw the new owners moving in, bringing their own lives into a space that had always been hers. Anger, hurt, and betrayal churned inside her. She couldn't believe that her sister could do something so bold, so reckless. Everything she thought she knew about family trust now felt fragile. Standing in the middle of her childhood home, Rashida realized that her world had changed in a single, devastating act, and nothing would ever feel the same again. Rashida closed her eyes and let her mind drift back to her childhood home in Kumasi, the house that had shaped so many of her earliest memories. She could still feel the warm sun on her face as she learned to ride her bicycle in the garden, her father steadying her back until she finally found her balance. The laughter of those moments still echoed in her mind, a sound so different from the emptiness she now faced in Accra. Inside the house, the kitchen had always been the heart of the home. She remembered staying up late at the kitchen table, pencil in hand, struggling over math problems while her mother stirred a pot of something fragrant on the stove. Her mother's gentle voice, offering encouragement between bites of a snack, had made even the hardest nights feel safe. Her first attempts at cooking were disasters, but her mother's smile and pride when she finally baked her first cake were unforgettable. And in the evenings, her father would sit with her as she worked on school projects, showing patience she didn't even realize she was witnessing at the time. Every corner of that house held a memory. The scratches on the living room floor from countless games of indoor tag, the marks on the wall where she had tracked her growth over the years, the little nook by the window where she used to read for hours. That home wasn't just bricks and mortar. It was the story of her childhood, a record of love, guidance, and the small triumphs that had built her into the person she had become. Remembering all of it made the betrayal in Accra sting even more. The house there had been hers, too, but it lacked the warmth and history of Kumasi. Yet Kumasi's memories reminded her of what a home truly meant, of family, trust, and the care poured into every corner. Every lesson her parents had taught, every smile, every word of advice had been woven into that house. And now, knowing that her sister had sold her own childhood memories with a signature and a handshake, Rashida felt the weight of that loss more than ever. The flashback wasn't just nostalgia. It was proof of everything that had been stolen, deepening the ache and making her desire for justice almost unbearable. Rashida couldn't stop thinking about how Rania had managed to pull this off right under everyone's noses. The more she dug, the more shocking the truth became. She found emails between Rania and real estate agents, messages on WhatsApp carefully worded to hide her intentions, and even bank statements showing deposits from the house sale. Every piece of evidence painted a clear picture. Rania had planned this quietly, deliberately keeping Rashida completely in the dark. It hurt in a way Rashida had never imagined. She felt the sting of betrayal in her chest, a mix of heartbreak and anger that wouldn't let her breathe. How could someone she had trusted so deeply, someone she had helped, supported, and protected, act with such cold calculation? Her mind replayed the years of sacrifices she had made for her family, and suddenly they felt meaningless. Rania hadn't just sold a house. She had taken away a piece of Rashida's life, a home filled with childhood memories, laughter, and family moments. What made it worse was learning how Rania had spun the story for others. Family members and neighbors had been misled to believe Rashida didn't care about the house, or that she had wanted to sell it herself. Rania's words had painted Rashida as ungrateful and selfish, while Rania appeared to be the responsible, caring sister. Rashida's fury rose as she imagined the whispers, the sideways glances, and the questions from people she had loved and trusted. She spent hours piecing it all together, each discovery adding fuel to the fire inside her. The betrayal wasn't just about the house. It was about trust, loyalty, and the raw honesty expected between siblings. Every email and message was a reminder of how carefully Rania had manipulated the truth, and every bank record was proof of her audacity. Rashida realized that confronting her sister wouldn't just be about reclaiming property. It would be about exposing deception, demanding accountability, and asserting that betrayal like this could not go unchallenged. The more she understood, the more determined she became. The mix of heartbreak and fury transformed into a fierce clarity. Rashida knew the coming battle wouldn't be easy, but she also knew that Rania's actions could not go unanswered. Each detail she uncovered strengthened her resolve, sharpening her focus on one undeniable truth. What had been taken from her was more than just a house. It was her history, her memories, and her right to be treated with honesty and respect. And she wasn't going to let it go. Rashida wandered through the empty rooms of her childhood home, each step echoing like a painful reminder of what had been lost. The walls seemed to whisper memories she couldn't hold on to anymore. She remembered her first art exhibition in the living room, the nervous excitement as friends and family praised her paintings, and how the room had felt alive with laughter and pride. Her study sessions for exams flashed through her mind, the kitchen table stacked with books, her father offering quiet encouragement, the late nights that had shaped her into who she was. Now, all of it felt hollow, as if the house had been stripped of its soul. Her hands trembled as she reread the documents showing the sale. Numbers and signatures blurred together, but the reality hit like a punch. Her sister had sold everything she had grown up with, everything she had loved. Rashida couldn't understand how the people she trusted most could allow this to happen. She questioned her family's loyalty, wondering if anyone had truly considered her feelings, or if she had been quietly erased from the story of her own life. Anger rose and fell in waves. At times, Rashida felt a burning fury, imagining confronting Rania and demanding answers. At other moments, the sadness was overwhelming, a weight pressing on her chest, bringing tears she didn't care to hold back. She thought about all the sacrifices she had made over the years, helping her parents with chores, supporting her younger sister, staying up late to study while others slept comfortably. Each memory of effort and care now felt betrayed, magnified by the audacity of Rania's actions. Pacing the rooms, Rashida realized she couldn't remain a victim of circumstance. The injustice gnawed at her, but beneath the heartbreak, a spark of resolve began to grow. She thought about what the house had meant, not just as property but as a symbol of her life, her memories, and her family's shared history. That house and what it represented was worth fighting for. Her turmoil was more than sadness or anger. It was a mix of disbelief, hurt, and determination, all colliding at once. Rashida knew that staying silent would mean losing more than just walls and furniture. It would mean losing her voice and her right to defend her legacy. The emotional chaos became fuel, shaping her from a sister betrayed into a woman ready to claim justice. Every memory, every pang of hurt, strengthened her resolve. Rashida wasn't just mourning a house. She was preparing to reclaim her life, her dignity, and the respect she deserved. Rashida knew that anger alone wouldn't get her house back. She needed proof, something undeniable to show that the home, and the life she had built there, belonged to her as much as anyone. She started digging through boxes of old receipts, bank statements, and school records she had carefully saved over the years. Every scrap of paper, every faded photograph became a piece of a puzzle that could expose the truth. There were pictures of her birthday parties, of family celebrations in the living room, and snapshots of her first attempts at baking in the kitchen. Each one reminded her of what she had lost, but also gave her hope. This evidence could help her fight back. Her investigation didn't stop there. Rashida contacted a trusted neighbor in Tamale who had always been close to the family. The neighbor revealed small but important details. Rania had made secret visits to the bank, had met with agents when no one else was around, and had carefully hidden her actions from anyone who might object. Each revelation made Rashida's anger grow, but it also sharpened her focus. She realized that this wasn't just about emotion, it was about strategy. Rashida spent hours organizing everything. She created folders on her laptop, scanned documents, and listed out dates and events that showed her involvement in maintaining and caring for the house. She wrote notes beside each photo and receipt, connecting the dots for herself so that when the time came to confront her sister, there would be no question of the truth. As the days passed, her frustration turned into empowerment. Each piece of evidence collected, every phone call made, every detail uncovered, transformed her despair into action. The process of gathering proof became a way for Rashida to take control, turning her pain into preparation. She felt like a detective in her own story, uncovering layers of deception and setting the stage for a showdown that would leave no room for lies. By the end of her search, Rashida had more than just papers and photos. She had a plan. She could see how her story would unfold, the evidence lining up like arrows pointing to the truth. For the first time since discovering the sale, she felt confident that she could face Rania and stand her ground. Every document collected, every memory captured, was a weapon of truth. Rashida knew that when she finally confronted her sister, she wouldn't just be asking for justice. She would be demanding it, armed with proof that left no room for doubt. Her emotional turmoil had shifted into determination, and she was ready to fight for her home, her memories, and her right to be heard. Rashida knew that collecting evidence was only the first step. The next, and perhaps hardest, part would be facing Ron. She spent hours thinking about how the confrontation might go, imagining every possible excuse her sister could use and every attempt at emotional manipulation. She practiced her responses out loud, trying to keep her voice calm but firm, rehearsing how to stay composed even if Rania cried, yelled, or tried to twist the truth. Each rehearsal made her more confident, teaching her that her strength didn't come from anger alone, but from preparation and clarity. She also took time to write in her journal, pouring out every feeling she had been holding inside: anger, hurt, disbelief, and even the moments of doubt that sometimes crept in. Putting her thoughts on paper helped Rashida organize her emotions so that they would not overwhelm her when she faced her sister. She wrote down key points she wanted to make, memories she wanted to mention, and questions that would reveal the truth. Each entry became a mental map for the confrontation, guiding her through the storm of emotions she expected to encounter. Visualization became another tool. Rashida imagined a public family gathering, seeing herself standing confidently in front of relatives and neighbors, holding the evidence she had collected. She pictured the room falling silent as she calmly explained the truth, the weight of Rania's deceit laid bare for everyone to see. The mental exercise wasn't just about strategy, it was about building the courage to take control of the narrative and protect her own story. Legal strategy also played a role in her preparation. Rashida researched her options, understanding her rights and considering how to present her case in a way that would be difficult to dispute. She didn't want the confrontation to be just an emotional showdown. She wanted it to have authority, backed by facts and law. Knowing she had a plan made her feel empowered, shifting her focus from the chaos of betrayal to the certainty of action. With each passing day, Rashida's confidence grew. She felt the transformation happening within her, her vulnerability slowly turning into strength. The fear of confronting her sister was still there, but it was tempered by readiness, determination, and clarity. She could sense that the confrontation, when it finally happened, would be more than just a personal reckoning. It could be a moment of public accountability, a story that others might witness and remember. Rashida was no longer just a hurt sister. She was a woman prepared to reclaim her dignity, armed not only with evidence but with calm, calculated poise. The stage was set for a confrontation that would be dramatic, emotional, and impossible to ignore. The family gathering in Lagos started like any other, with laughter, greetings, and the hum of conversation filling the room. But Rashida had come prepared, and the moment she saw Rania across the room, she knew there would be no pretending this was normal. Taking a deep breath, she stepped forward, her evidence folder tucked under her arm. Relatives and neighbors noticed the intensity in her eyes, sensing that something important was about to unfold. Rashida began calmly, her voice steady but firm. She laid out the timeline of events, showing emails, messages, and bank statements that proved Rania had sold the house without consulting her. Each piece of evidence was presented clearly, carefully, leaving no room for doubt. Rania's attempts to cry, deflect, or manipulate the story were met with Rashida's unshakable composure. She anticipated every excuse, every twist, and responded with facts rather than emotion. As the details came to light, the room fell silent. Whispered questions and wide eyes replaced the chatter. Some family members shifted uncomfortably, realizing they had been misled. Neighbors exchanged looks of surprise, astonished that such deception had taken place right under their noses. Rashida's calm authority dominated the space. She didn't shout or accuse. Instead, she let the evidence speak, her voice carrying both strength and dignity. Rania tried to argue, but every point she made only highlighted her own dishonesty. Rashida reminded everyone of the sacrifices she had made for the family, of the memories tied to the house, and of how Rania had twisted the truth to make herself appear responsible while painting Rashida as careless. The impact was immediate. Shock, disbelief, and finally, understanding began to ripple through the crowd. For Rashida, this confrontation was more than just a family dispute. It was a reclaiming of power. She stood in the center of the room, unafraid, unwavering, proving that betrayal could be met with courage and clarity. By the time she finished, the atmosphere had shifted. The narrative was hers now, backed by undeniable truth and the respect of those witnessing it. People began to murmur in admiration, some nodding quietly, others clearly impressed by her composure. What could have been a chaotic, emotional breakdown instead became a moment of public empowerment. Rashida had turned her pain into authority, exposing deceit with dignity. The confrontation wasn't just about the house. It was about justice, respect, and the courage to stand up for oneself, no matter how close the betrayal. As she closed her folder, a hush lingered in the room, everyone aware they had witnessed something remarkable. A sister reclaiming her life, her voice, and her truth, in a way that no one could ignore. The moment Rashida finished presenting her case, The room was filled with a mix of silence and murmurs. People were processing what had just happened, and the reactions came in waves. Some relatives nodded approvingly, their eyes filled with respect and newfound understanding. They whispered quietly to one another, realizing how carefully Rania had manipulated the truth and how calmly Rashida had reclaimed her story. These whispers weren't mean-spirited. They carried awe, a recognition of the strength and composure Rashida had shown in the face of betrayal. Friends and neighbors who had been close to the family also reacted. Some had been skeptical of the situation before, uncertain where the truth lay. Now, seeing the evidence laid out and Rashida's calm confidence, they couldn't help but admire her determination. People leaned in, asking questions about the documents, the emails, and the photographs, as if wanting to understand how she had pieced everything together. It was clear to everyone present that Rashida had done more than just prove her point. She had taken control of a situation that could have easily spiraled out of her hand. Not everyone reacted positively at first. A few family members who had previously sided with Rania shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Their earlier judgments now seemed misplaced, and the embarrassment was visible on their faces. Some avoided eye contact, while others whispered apologies under their breath. It became obvious that Rashida's poise and preparation had not only exposed Rania's actions, but also forced others to reconsider their assumptions. The community's admiration grew as the realization sank in. Rashida had transformed from a wronged sister into a leader, someone who could stand up for herself and command respect without raising her voice. The story of the confrontation quickly spread beyond the gathering, neighbors discussing it in small groups, sharing how a woman had defended her home, her memories, and her dignity in front of everyone. Rashida's actions resonated because they were relatable. People understood betrayal, family tension, and the courage it took to face it publicly. By the end of the day, the atmosphere had shifted. Rashida was no longer just a victim. She had become an example of strength and accountability. Her calm, strategic, and emotionally intelligent approach left a mark on everyone present, creating a ripple effect that extended beyond her immediate family. People left the gathering talking about her courage, her careful preparation, and the dignity with which she handled an intense situation. It was clear that Rashida had not only reclaimed her story, but also inspired those around. In that moment, she wasn't just a sister seeking justice. She was a symbol of empowerment, showing that even the deepest betrayals could be met with grace, courage, and undeniable strength. After the confrontation in Lagos, Rashida knew the next step was legal action. Words and evidence had revealed the truth, but to reclaim her home, she needed formal authority. She consulted a lawyer and carefully reviewed all the documents, emails, and bank statements she had gathered. Each piece of evidence strengthened her case, giving her confidence that justice was within reach. Rashida approached the process calmly but determinedly, understanding that this was more than a fight over property. It was a battle to reclaim her life, her memories, and her dignity. Negotiations with the new buyers began cautiously. Rashida explained the situation, presenting proof that the sale had been made without her knowledge and consent. The buyers, caught between legal obligation and moral consideration, had to reconsider their position. Some were sympathetic, realizing they had unknowingly stepped into a conflict that wasn't theirs to profit from. Rashida remained patient and composed, listening carefully, addressing concerns, and asserting her rights. With every meeting, she grew more confident, no longer overwhelmed by anger or betrayal, but focused on achieving a fair resolution. Eventually, the negotiations led to a breakthrough. Rashida regained control over the house, reclaiming not just ownership on paper, but the emotional connection she had feared lost forever. Walking through the rooms once more, she felt a sense of closure settling over. The walls, the furniture, and the spaces filled with childhood memories now felt like hers again, untouched by the betrayal she had endured. Even if financial compensation wasn't complete or some damages could not be recovered, Rashida had restored her agency. She had taken control of her life and refused to be sidelined. This resolution wasn't just about winning a legal battle. It was about reclaiming power and peace. Rashida had faced deceit, manipulation, and emotional turmoil, yet she had emerged stronger. The process taught her that justice was not always immediate, but persistence, preparation, and clarity could turn a painful situation into a story of triumph. The house symbolized more than property. It represented family history, personal growth, and resilience. Her victory resonated beyond her own life. Family members and neighbors, who had watched her confront Rania and pursue justice, now saw her as someone who could face adversity with intelligence, courage, and dignity. Rashida's journey became an example of how determination, strategy, and emotional strength could restore not only what was taken but also self-respect. As she stood in the living room, memories of her childhood mingling with a sense of accomplishment, Rashida realized that this was more than a personal victory. It was a reclamation of her story. She had turned betrayal into empowerment, proving that even in the face of the deepest deception, it was possible to emerge whole, strong, and in control. Rashida walked slowly through her restored home, each room carrying memories that now felt safe and whole again. The living room still held the marks of her first art exhibition. The kitchen smelled faintly of spices from family meals, and the garden reminded her of afternoons spent learning to ride her bicycle. Every corner told a story of her childhood, of love, laughter, and growth. But now, those memories were hers to protect, no longer shadowed by betrayal or loss. As she moved from room to room, Rashida reflected on what she had learned. She realized how important it was to set boundaries, to protect her rights, and to trust her instincts. The experience had shown her that self-worth was not dependent on others' actions or opinions, and that standing up for oneself was not just brave, it was necessary. She smiled at the resilience she had discovered in herself, the strength that had grown from heartbreak and frustration into clarity and confidence. Rashida also thought about her family, about how actions could reveal character, and how forgiveness and accountability could coexist. She understood that empowerment came not from revenge, but from reclaiming control over one's own life. She had faced deceit, manipulation, and doubt, and had emerged with dignity intact. In that quiet moment, standing in the heart of her home, Rashida felt a deep sense of peace. She had not only reclaimed a house, but also her voice, her confidence, and her story. Her journey became a reminder that no matter how close the betrayal, it was possible to rise, to take action, and to protect what mattered most. Rashida's story was now one of courage, empowerment, and inspiration, a lesson in standing firm, reclaiming dignity, and moving forward stronger than before.